but it's not, it's
All
saying,
right, let's call to order our
Let me go
June
back and start
2nd,
again.
2025 meeting of the Community Preservation Committee. Our first item is to review and approve the minutes, which Emma did for us last month. Are there any questions, comments, edits?
I have one edit,
Yes.
although I'm going to abstain because I wasn't there, but generally, I think on minutes, we should have who is not present as well recorded, but I don't know if that's just a minor issue, so I would make that
Add
suggestion.
that to it. Excuse me. Are there any other edits, corrections? And is there a motion to approve the minutes with the addition of those not present?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstention.
Minutes are approved. Next is review and sign bills. Are there any bills?
None this evening.
Man, I wish I could say that at home. So we'll move on to the staff report.
Thank you. I did, fresh off the presses, that monthly update came out today for our department. To be honest, for the committee, there's not too much there, but I did want to highlight the Community One-Stop Grant applications, as I think that is somewhat relevant. We'll be seeking 2 Community One-Stop applications. They're due June 4th, so coming up very quickly. Seeking funding support for both the master plan update as well as the Edgemere neighborhood, looking at commercial redevelopment opportunities. So those are, applications that were developed responsive to an expression of interest round where we received feedback from the grant agencies, and we'll be submitting those applications shortly. We're just finalizing some last touches, so we're hopeful for that funding. Yep. Just moving on to the next item, if that's all right, the joint committee status update. I'm pleased to report that we will be presenting on this at the next month's meeting in July. So we have, the joint committee has, I think, done a lot of work to come up with a funding agreement that both groups can now kind of fine tune. It's been reviewed by town council. Similarly, we're just adding in some final language edits before submitting that. So that will be off to the committee and the trust probably within this week. You'll see that in your inboxes. So we'll take that up at each of those groups' respective open meetings. More to come on that.
Questions or comments for Mr. McGoldrick? And we move on to our action items. And the first is to review and adopt our annual community preservation plan updates. It's my understanding folks did submit some corrections and updates, realizing I haven't given you the letter. Whoops. It's still May, right?
It's technically June, but yeah, only the second.
Other than the letter, is there anything else anyone wants to add?
There was one place where Mountain View was written as one word, and it should be 2. I'm sorry, I don't recall exactly what page it was on. Oh, may I add another thing?
Yes, absolutely.
In a section on town land that was in various conservation restrictions, there was a little passage about Chapter 61, and it noted that we have lost about 100 acres to, going off of Chapter 61. And the way it was phrased, and I did, let's see, I don't think I brought it. No, I didn't. But it just said that 100 some acres were lost, so to speak. Now, they're not lost, we know where they are. They're they've rolled off of 61 and they have no legal protection as regards conservation. So either the owners just weren't paying attention or they made the decision to forego the tax benefits to do other things with their property. We just don't really know, I guess. But I'm just wondering if we should rephrase that a little bit. I think that was on page 31.
Right here,
So you got it.
17,
17, okay.
right there.
Thank you. Yes. This represents a loss of over 50 acres since the 2020 figure. In fact, let me start. As of June 2025, there are 8 properties totaling 340.32 acres enrolled in Chapter 61. This represents a loss of over 50 acres since the 2020 figure. Now, that's perfectly correct, but I don't know if I like the phrasing.
All right, this is the time to propose.
Hmm?
This is the time to propose a change, so what would you like?
Well, I've been thinking about it, and I just don't know what I want to say. It's just basically that they're no longer in that protected plan, and the word lost seems a little harsh.
So how about they lost Chapter 61 coverage?
Oh, that would do, yeah, okay. I think
Or more than 50 acres have unenrolled in Chapter 61, or?
That's a possibility, too.
So I'd recommend unenrolled, just because it's an exercise of a right to unenroll that technically. So I think
Yeah.
that's probably the most accurate
Yeah,
wording to use. Happy to
okay.
amend that.
Unenrolled sounds good.
So that means after the 10 years, they didn't submit,
Correct.
they didn't have to pay the rollback taxes either.
Oh.
They have to pay back taxes?
They don't.
They don't.
If you take it out while you're under the protection,
Right.
you do. If you submitted the request to the town to take it out,
Hmm.
because you were gonna sell it or whatever, but I think at the end of your 10 years, you
Wow. So that really is more like either a lapse in the owners, understand, to renew, or they have other plans for those parcels.
maybe they weren't paying, maybe they weren't paying attention, maybe they have other plans.
Now, when the tax bill comes in, like, whoa,
Yeah.
what happened?
Hmm.
So are they sent a letter or something that asks, are you aware that you are unenrolled?
I'd have to check with assessors what their process is for tracking that. I do know that they are tracked. We get annual figures from them, but in terms of the notifying the property owners, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I can get that information.
Sounds good.
I only kind of have one semantical comment on page 3, where it lists all the projects. The dollar signs are right up against the number. In a few of them, when I took a quick look at it, the dollar sign looks like an 8. And if you look at the second one, they do have a space between the dollar sign. That's the only one that has a space. And I just think it looks a little bit better.
Also, with the project list, I'm recommending that the fiscal year is added to that.
It's a good point. Folks might think we did all of this year.
May I ask, because I am so new here, how does this committee use the heat map analysis?
Use that to help define the goals in each section. Some of the things that come up often under, say, historic preservation, then in the section about historic preservation, maybe listed under the goals. That and the heat map is available to look at, so folks can see what other people said was important. Is that a good answer?
Yeah, I think it is. So the heat map, it's kind of a tool that we use as we collect input. We try to combine very similar comments together, but really kind of keep them separate. But as you see themes kind of being repeated, we've been doing it by each year. We kind of coalesce them so that it does light up. But as we see repeated things said, those will get a brighter color. So it just says, it kind of helps us to map out what's the frequent items being discussed. One of the things that we're going to be working on in the next several months is looking at reaching out to department heads on their activities to see whether CPC related or not. What are some of the things, the town initiatives that are actually speaking to or doing work with those heat map items. So even if CPC hasn't done it and it hasn't been responsive in that amount of time, we may have done it through our normal course of some other department. So we're going to try to highlight that as well and track that a little closer. So.
All right, thank you.
Yes. Are there any other,
Yes. On page 13, the listing of town boards and committees that were reached out to. So the list was longer when we were in our beginning of our creation of the plan. But is this accurate that all these committees were reached out to? Yeah,
They were.
this year?
Yep.
Okay.
my question was on the same page, are these all of the documents, all the plans, we added the housing production plan, is there anything else that's relevant that should be in there? And the next part probably to talk about is under the application process. Because there are some edits here that we haven't fully discussed yet, but we should. We're talking about going back to, if not a firm deadline, more deadlines back as we started the first year. So that we can certainly consider eligibility. It'd be great for eligibility to be spread out every meeting, to have one or two to determine yes or no it's eligible, go forward, and then write an application. But, I've heard different opinions over the course of the year about, having them all to consider what we'll recommend for funding at once, rather than hoping and guessing we didn't approve something that sounded great for one town meeting, and oops, we spent all the money and something even better comes along for the spring. So there was talk of having deadlines again, but again, reinforcing that absolutely if something like that land acquisition, that time is of the essence, that we absolutely can make the decision to take something out of cycle or immediately if need be, but in general, encouraging people towards deadlines. What do you think? Any opinions?
I mean, I think we gave it a try, to see if we could do rolling. I think we're gonna wind up being in the same position anyway, with
May not be wrong.
with eligibility requests coming in after the dates. But I think I saw some language here about voting on it, 2/3 or something to that effect, so.
Yeah, so that would be something we would be, seeking some input from the committee on. So from our discussion with the coalition, they did recommend having deadlines. In our memo to the committee, we proposed a schedule that follows similar to our kind of zoning process, when we propose zoning with the planning board to town meetings. So that gives enough kind of time for review, the public hearing process, and, hitting the warrant deadlines. The coalition also recommended that there is some voting threshold to take out-of-cycle applications. Whether that's 2/3 unanimous, I think that threshold would be something that we would be seeking your input of what is most comfortable, but we would recommend some kind of a voting threshold to take applications out of that cycle. So for example, looking at a previous process for something that's really well put together and has a time-sensitive nature to it, those would be the two kind of findings the committee would seek in addition to take something out of cycle.
That makes sense. What do you think? Anyone?
Well, this is basically what you're talking about in this memo you sent out? Okay, so it all looked pretty good to me. I particularly like the part about removing the financial questions from the eligibility application. That really, it's got to really be a pain in the neck, and there's no point in it. So, yeah.
We could ask for a guesstimate, a range of what they think, so we understand. I mean, just so our planning purposes, do you think this is a $1 million project or a $1,000 project? They could give us a range, but we don't want is people to go to the trouble of getting a full-blown estimate and all sorts of documentation, and then we tell them that's really nice, but it's not eligible.
Yeah.
And to ask if it's eligible and stop and wait for an answer. And we can be nimble with those. We can certainly consider those every month if we have some in front of us.
Well, could we ask just verbally instead of having it in a written document, or do you want us to see something in print? When a person comes in with an application?
I think for eligibility, we have to have something in writing.
Well, I mean, about their, what they think the financial stretch will be. I mean, is it, how should I phrase that? By an order of 10 every time or something, if it's $100, $1,000, 100, and so on.
Maybe we could phrase the question with just, do you have a rough estimate of what this might cost?
Yeah,
And say that the question is optional.
yeah. We won't hold you to it.
Because the price of a project doesn't determine whether or not it's eligible. It's the scope of the project. It's more just for our own curiosity.
I guess, I think we don't need the financial information to determine eligibility. Again, just an impression. I can see people thinking they have to fill that out and they're gonna go do a lot of work to put a number in there when they're not sure it's eligible. Once we determine it's eligible, then maybe as a second round, they gotta come back anyway, then they can do their work. That's my only thought process on that.
That makes sense. What we could do is physically edit the eligibility application and the application and share them with everyone for the, the July meeting. Is there anything, how do you feel about the page in here with the suggested timeline of when things would be due, project eligibility and full eligibility?
It seems to me that the funding application due date is pretty early. Within a lot of time to turn around or turn it around.
I wonder if we should, because sometimes, especially September, with Labor Day being a Monday, sometimes our meeting is later, maybe that full funding application due should be November 1, not October. I would like to think that if some people may just, the spaghetti stick, throw it out there and see what sticks, but they may be further along. But that would give them more time to do a good, strong application if it were November. And that would still give us time. But if we had an early October, you know how we play with those dates sometimes because of the holidays in September and October, I'd hate for somebody to feel like they had 2 weeks to turn it around.
So that would be November and April?
Maybe November for the May town meeting timeline, which I think was what our original deadline was. And then for the November special town meeting timeline, instead of April 1, we make that May 1st. Which means our May agenda could be really, really gnarly, but we can get there.
Okay, so November deadline for spring town meeting, May 1st for fall town meeting? Okay,
I think that makes sense.
it feels comfortable.
And if we have to, then we can reinforce it, and we always have the ability to move a deadline, to take something up out of order. We'll always have that ability for that. Excuse me. What else?
I'll say, the one more thing I would put in is, if we leave it, it doesn't bother me, but we reference on page 4 and on page 8, we kind of say the same thing, that there's 201 communities in the Commonwealth that have passed the law. One just says we have 201 communities, and the second one says, as of May, we have 201 communities. It's kind of the only real difference. So,
I think it said 200 somewhere, too.
it says 201.
I know, I saw the 201, but I think I saw 200 as well somewhere. But maybe that was changed.
Yeah, there was a town that just passed the CPA in their May town meeting.
Oh, so that was very recent. Okay.
Yeah,
So it is 201.
it is 201.
If you want to leave it, I don't care. I was just throwing that out.
What else do we see that want to edit or add?
I think the goals will circle back to after we look at the heat map. So that section will just be ending that discussion.
You have to vote on the changes in the dates for submissions.
I'm sorry,
Do we have to vote on the changes in the dates?
I
for
think we do.
submissions?
I mean, do we have to vote on every change specifically?
No, I would do it as a bulk. Once we've discussed them all, I think we can just,
Some of them are just edits, this is a
Yeah.
procedural matter.
Yeah, okay.
Do you want to skip up, out to the heat map and then go back to the goals? Excuse me. And which is the appropriate way to write Mountain View Cemetery? Is it one word or is it two?
It's Mountain
looking at
View,
you,
right?
Gail.
I've seen it that way
I think
practically
it's
everywhere.
two.
Seen it both ways, actually.
Oh,
Really?
I'm not
why
sure.
don't you look it up, see what it comes up as?
Yeah, I think it's,
I think it's two.
then of course, there's always the question of, can you abbreviate mountain, MT?
Yeah, right. I see, that's how it's usually. Two words.
We'll say on page 23,
Yep, on
the
town
list
website,
of
it's two.
community resources. Those aren't sentences, so those bullets don't need periods at the end of them. And is house capitalized for Artemis Ward House?
Oh, I would think so. That would be my guess.
I'm not,
I'm gonna
You're
look
the-
at it, but I would think so.
it's a
I
proper
don't know what they
name.
do. I think that if you, I think the casual person would not, but I don't know what their personal usage is. Whatever they, legally say, how they do.
General Artemis Ward House, it's all capitalized.
Okay.
All.
Well, let's make that a capital H while we're there.
Yeah.
On the historical preservation section of the plan, I noticed on the resources it was red. That wasn't meant to be changed, right? Okay, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't being deleted.
What else do we see? Can check with Kathy if there's anything else or anything new with community housing.
We have had conversation in the commission about identifying other historical sections of town, but I think it needs a little bit more investigation. That's why we didn't add it to this year's plan, so going forward, because there's different pockets of historic areas that don't get recognition, so, but we're not sure how to do that, so just a heads up.
Under community housing, the number of units is from June 29th, 2023. Is that the most current number?
Sorry,
Yeah, ask
where was that?
On page 28, under community housing, the paragraph right above the purple table says, as of June 29th, 2023, Shrewsbury has a total of 893 units. Is that the most recent number?
No, it's not, and we'll update that.
Okay.
Recommend that, at this point, with other edits there, let the edits be made and then just bring it back to the next meeting to final review.
I agree.
And to pause on further, hearing no other changes, then we move on to heat map and seeing if the goals need to be updated. And then I can bundle it all up in your July meeting. July meeting.
All right. Folks want to scroll down if you're scrolling to the heat map. The highlight and the heading on that, is that actually,
Oh, sorry, that was
That's
it.
so just a comment.
okay. Now, what is the opinion on the heat map? If there's something that was there historically, but we actually did it, should it still be on the heat map, or should it be removed?
I'll defer to the committee. I think my recommendation would be to leave it on there, and then we'll have that supplemental document that shows progress on initiatives. So, looking at some of the comments like buying large connecting tracks of open space, which is one that lights up. We get that consistently. The committee certainly has made progress on that, but I don't think that, means that we shouldn't continue to do that work, or lessens that comment and that goal in any way. But I defer to the committee if they feel otherwise.
Well, in the case of Camp Wanigan's parking lot, there's only one Wanigan parking lot, and it's done. It really doesn't need to still be there, I don't think. But there should be some recognition that we did it.
Like, for example, I'm looking at convert the temporary story walk signs into permanent fixtures at Lake Street Park. We did that.
Yes, done. Check.
Yeah, I think they added to, on the open space needs, the first bullet, and the heat map says parking lot for Camp Wanigan, cars from Forest. So we heard about parking lot at Carbstrom again in 2025. So that should just adding at the 2025. The open space needs. So the idea with the heat map was really to look at what's popping out and see for each of the categories whether they does anything new come up that should impact our goals, which is on the page before that. So page 32, I'm recommending that we go just pick open space first, right? Open space goals, read them, internalize them, then look back at the heat map and say, is there anything new that's popped up that is not already covered in the goals?
That makes sense.
So if we go up to 32, which is the goals, and I think just zoom in for those who are reading off the screen, look at the 4 goals on the open space. You see that?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so just take a moment there to read open space. Let's go through, I think I recommend we go each one by one. Go to open space, see if it's there, see what's there right now.
I wonder if open space, if goals 1C could be edited. So in the heat map, it suggested enhancing and identifying existing trails. Maybe we just change that in addition to increasing connectivity, enhancing. Or, I don't know, we don't mention trails specifically in any of these.
It's kind of implied there because the Trails Committee has an active plan to work ahead towards connecting all the parks in town and, points of interest, so that we have a system where you can walk somewhere sensibly and actually get somewhere you want to be. So that's sort of implied in that.
I just add the word trails too.
Yeah, let's see.
Increase and enhance or just increase connectivity between open space properties, neighborhoods, trails, and parcels.
Of course, I love the idea of trails, but a lot of the times trails happen to be impossible in some areas, and we have to rely on sidewalks or even actual streets if they're not too busy. And we're thinking along those lines. So, if you want to get from, say, Floral Street School to Liberty Ave, you can get there, but you have to walk on Hunting Ave. And, that's just the way it is. There's no other way we can do that, just as an example.
I want to counter that and say that the idea of connectivity was not limited to just human traffic, but it was also animal traffic. And so, yeah, that it was to be passageways for the wildlife to go between. Instead of dodging cars, they'll just be going through trees. Right? So that was also the idea about
I never thought about that, to tell you the truth. You're, of course, right. You want butterflies to be able to migrate and, Turtles,
Think
turtles are big. yeah.
So would it make
So
Yeah,
sense?
connectivity also includes the problem of like culverts, which water can pass through,
Yes.
but animals that are associated can't pass through. So you have cut-off populations. That's a connectivity problem, and it's not a really nice one at all.
Mhm.
Is there a way to adjust the culvert so that can be both? Like
It is
some type-
expensive,
Is
because
it?
you have to redesign the culvert, but there are culverts that are well-designed,
Okay.
yeah.
So might it make sense then to leave that goal as is and just add one around identifying and enhancing existing trails? Because that was mentioned in a variety of ways.
Is that culvert issue something that could be addressed in the building department going forward? Like when new projects come forward with culverts, that there's some provision in there? If it falls into a area where there would be animals traversing that area? You know, I don't know, just another thing that,
I'm not like the final word on this, but DPW needs to be involved usually
okay,
in that.
And construction standards for subdivisions and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, right, and Conservation Commission.
uh-huh.
CMRPC had a program about that. If you had a bad culvert, you might be able to get money from them. Like if the culvert was too high
Yeah,
or something like that, you know? I mean, like water was draining out like a little waterfall instead of,
yeah.
yeah.
Interesting.
Just that would be like a one-way culvert. You know, you
Yeah.
could go out, but you couldn't come back.
And not everyone could go out anyway.
Maybe E is just identify and enhance trails and leave the connecting part to goal C.
Sorry, where do you want to add it?
Under open space goals, we added E, identify enhanced
Right, on the
trails. And I
screen
think
there.
just leave the
Oh.
word connectivity to goal C. Okay, what else in open space? How about we look at recreation?
On that one there with the trails, I just want to make sure that it fits in what's eligible, right, based on CPC. You know that diagram better than I do,
Yes.
so, okay.
Oh, yes, yes. What's it called? Passive recreation, right, through open space.
Okay.
Well, there's a difference between a goal and a standard.
Well, should we put something on a goal that we know isn't eligible, right, and so it
That's the
never,
issue, yeah.
yeah.
Would that goal be better under recreation?
No, I think you're good with the
Yeah.
open space goals.
All right, then how about under recreation? Anything to edit or to add based on what was said?
The community continues to express an interest in dog parks. And I think opportunities here to say that it's not just for human recreation, but also our furry friends. And preserve, improve, and develop safe recreational opportunities for all ages, abilities, and our pets. And, or something to that
Number of
effect.
feet?
What was
Well,
it,
if we put out our bird feeders early, we're providing recreation for the bears already.
I mean, it's, the point of this is really to go through hearing what the community's been asking for, and that's something that's been consistently requested. I think that if we, I think this is the opportunity to save, to put something into our goals at this point. How we wanna write that in, great,
I
opt out.
I think we were intentional in not being so specific in the goals. While folks talk about dog parks, nobody's done anything about it. We don't create the applications, we don't create the projects. We encourage and we try to tell folks what the community is talking about. But I don't know if we want to put something so specific as a dog park under the goal.
I mean, I wasn't saying literally a dog park, but
What about something like allowing, or not allowing, but combined use of recreational property with with animal and human recreation, you know, where they can coexist together,
Pets.
like in, huh?
I know.
don't know, how do you, how would you say
My daughter
that?
used that to continue her argument for a house cow.
What?
A house cow, it's a thing.
a house cow, okay.
I had one as a child, but, you know, we kept it in the barn. House cow, indeed. You know, a lot of the trails are like recreation for dogs. Specifically, we were out on Rawson Hill the other day, yesterday, and opening up a new trail up there, and we weren't even done, and a lady came by with 2 dogs and said she walks here every day and she's going to continue to walk there. And that's a particularly good example of why that was needed, because that stretch of Prospect is just awful to walk on. There's no sidewalks and people drive like maniacs. And it's very dangerous for a pedestrian with a dog. So, you know, if they're making this little cutoff and going into the wooded area where it's nicely, you know, cleared and blazed at this point, you know, that's, you know, a clear understanding that we expect dogs to be there, so. Without it actually being a dog park.
It's generally
There's
dog
probably places
parks.
where you could let your dog off the leash and nobody would even know.
So, on trails, they should be leashed.
I'm not saying that's a good thing to do.
Yeah, Emily. You have bylaws, you know.
We should never do that, but, you know,
Well, there's a proposed entry there on the screen right now, so. Just saying. It's magically appears. Thank you, Emma. What do you think? 2D.
animal companions, okay. Yeah, well, that's pretty open-ended,
Yeah,
too.
right.
Yeah, my
You got
emotional
A
support
goat or a
ferret will have
cat or a
good time.
dog, or you want to walk your goat?
Please actually walk the goat so we can get rid of all this poison ivy that's.
Oh, God, yes, wouldn't that be
Right,
wonderful?
exactly.
You have to
Or do-
hire dog.
Or do goat
goats now.
yoga in the park or something, you know?
John's holding back his enthusiasm.
Do you have to go back and just, you still got A being changed, do you go back to its original wording, that's all. Seeing you inserted D.
What was it? I have to delete, what, sorry?
Oh.
Item A up there, you had made changes to it that probably are not necessary now. It was like you were gonna insert whatever changes that was there, and you just
Yeah.
put D in, which covers it.
You're just saying undo the cross out of and.
Yeah,
In 1 and
in
2.
the comma, in A.
Oh, that's why it's crossed off. It's the, oh, I see, yeah. Probably is. There we go.
Anything else under recreation? All right, let's look at historic preservation goals.
Wasn't there another one? More than two on preservation, I thought. I don't have it in front of me. In the body, no?
We just do.
Yeah, understand.
So for, I don't know, it's a little too general to say you're preserving and restoring historic artifacts. I get that, documents, monuments, and cemeteries? Is it cemetery, isn't that covered under monuments? I mean,
Also, monuments can be like discrete things, but cemeteries are a large plot of land.
Yeah.
I know, but historic isn't necessarily, are you doing something with the cemetery other than like gravestone restoration? I understand that part of it, and wouldn't that be under monuments? Versus a cemetery being a large plot of
I
land?
think when we said monuments, it was more in line with like the war memorials and things like that, where gravestones aren't necessarily monuments. I mean, they could
Right.
be,
Yeah, but I
Called
think they
monuments.
may be defined as monuments.
Well, you could
As long as
see
it's
that
covered.
preserving a cemetery that was under threat from, say, flooding or landslides or something like that, that might be preserving the cemetery, if that were the hazard.
Yeah, I guess, but is that I mean, I know there's historic sections of the cemetery, right? And then there are not so historic sections of the cemetery.
Contemporary,
Yes,
yet to age into historic preservation.
I just didn't know if it was too generic as to what around cemeteries.
Do you think if Chris moved the word historic and instead said something to the effect of preserve and restore artifacts, documents, monuments, and cemeteries that are deemed historic, that.
Or historic elements of the cemetery? Yeah.
what about, same thing, I guess, semantics, instead of cemeteries, historic burial grounds? I
Yeah.
mean, it's, so, doesn't,
I think it's nice to do this.
somebody's got,
Are we ever gonna look at it again when
You need
we
to
have an
look at stuff.
application and say, oh, this is inconsistent with our
yeah.
Goals?
26 goals?
And the goals are meant to be a guide, not an exact blueprint.
Well, so I think we're kind of, perfect is the enemy of good. We don't have to be perfect, the goals just have to be good.
I mean, do you need the word historic in front of cemeteries?
They're always historic, and they're becoming more
Because-
historic day by day.
Historic is in the heading, and the word historic is
Yeah,
right at the beginning of the sentence.
Yeah, we're okay.
Okay.
I recommend leaving it as is.
You recommend what?
No change.
Yeah, that's,
Ultimately, this committee is, if we know what we meant, we're the ones executing the goals.
Okay, so no changes to historic preservation.
Right.
That's proposed. And it's also proposed to change. So you gotta pick one. What is the will of the committee?
I'm good leaving it. I'm good.
All right. Then let's look at community housing goals.
Sorry, but there is a change there, right? The highlight, temperature control preservation spaces, and 2 hits on that so far. So is that covered amongst the existing goals? So the idea is to look at the.
Restore
look at the
historic artifacts.
Are they covered already?
I think so.
That would be
preserving,
the
yeah.
means by which you could
I don't think
preserve
we
and
want to make it too
preserve
specific.
historic artifacts.
Yeah, it's under artifacts.
Okay. Community housing.
I think our goals there remain the same. Actually,
Kathleen's not
maybe-
here. Oh, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Kathleen's not here, but how would CPA take care of as well as young adults to help Shrewsbury residents remain in Shrewsbury. How would that happen? I mean, what kind of project would exist to do that?
I mean, I would assume
Unless they were
a low-income
low
young adult
income, I
would
suppose,
receive,
yeah, okay,
would
all right.
receive assistance.
Yeah, right.
So you're saying we should leave young adults out?
Well, I don't know, I didn't, if it's not attainable, why is it in there? But I didn't think if it's a young person
I
that's,
understand the sentiment behind it, that we want our young people to.
Right.
I mean, my daughters both graduated from college, and they're both living at home right now, and they have jobs. But I'm not sure that there are, I wish Kathy were here, the rules of community housing and eligibility is based on income, or if you're an elderly person, but with an income guideline as well. So I'm not sure that it's different for a young person fresh out of high school than it would be for a 40-year-old low-income person.
I don't know what young person, young adult means. You know, in this group, there's young.
I recall there was
What
a
is young?
conversation lamenting that young people finishing their education and wanting to settle down, that it was difficult to move back home to their hometown.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that that falls under community housing
We're gonna
goals.
get
Right,
deluged
that's-
with
that's-
applications
that's my
for
point.
ADUs. I would hate to see people looking for funds from us to construct an ADU onto their house.
That's a
We
great-
could say create
exactly.
more community housing, particularly for vulnerable populations.
Kind of what that.
That might cover a
Yes,
lot,
that just says it in a very broad way.
which
It
might.
says the
be-
same thing broadly,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a no.
Yes, John.
It's not
I mean,
a-
I think the term young adults, it opens it up to the question is, what is a young adult? And why are we limiting it to young adults?
I agree.
People would ask that question.
Right.
I think they
But
need
in
to go,
fact-
yeah.
B, I think, covers how and why you would help people. But
Okay.
as opposed to, do they have to be a young adult to qualify for B?
And the project that, the study that we most recently approved is looking at family housing, so which
Yeah.
isn't anything that
But I
is
can see
delineated there,
people-
so perhaps a broader goal is
I
better.
can see people asking for money for the interest rate write-downs. I mean, that, it's a one-shot deal, come and give me 15 grand so I can get 1 or 2 points off my interest rate over the life of the loan, which now makes it, gives me the ability to buy a house and stay in Shrewsbury. Is that people that are at the 80% of income averaging, or, is that anybody?
Oh, so, okay, so I think that there's okay, so this is problematic for sure, and it should be, I think we should get rid of the young adults piece to this. At the end of the day, it's really about what is eligible, right? So like to your point. And so what is eligible is really just two categories. It's seniors that are low and moderate income, up to the 100% AMI.
Yep.
And then below that is low income, and that's 80% AMI and below. So that would just be restating the, what Chapter 44B says it's eligible. We don't want to do that here. So I think that the goal is create more community housing for eligible populations,
Right,
period.
Yeah,
Right.
I like
Okay.
that word.
exactly.
We don't want something that,
Age should have nothing to do with it.
yes, we also don't want to be involved in a situation where the housing is not restricted in perpetuity. Where someone comes in saying, oh, I'm looking for this, I saw it, your goals, and, I might meet the income requirements, maybe I got a family member who's willing to give me a deal on a house, but I need the interest rate buy down.
Yeah.
You wanna make sure whatever we're doing, that the housing stock is restricted in perpetuity towards affordability.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
yeah.
This is just.
Opening the door. Yeah, right.
Well, can we just say, create more community housing for qualified applicants? Or something like that?
Income
It's just a
eligible.
goal, it's not a standard, but, you know,
How did you say it, eligible?
Eligible. Yep.
Yeah.
Eligible populations.
And actually, it's the same language you see in 4B at the end.
how many people come in?
To individuals and families that are eligible for community housing. So the same point is
Mhm.
create more community housing for,
I'm looking for money.
eligible populations.
And that way, over time, as Steve said, if the definition of what's eligible changes, our goal is still to address whatever is eligible. What else is there?
I would just put in period after eligible population, right where your cursor is. And even take out to help Shrewsbury residents remain in Shrewsbury, I just
Yeah.
take all of that out.
Will you revisit the goals when Kathy comes back next meeting?
We will ask her what she thinks.
You have
Is the eligibility strictly income?
populations plural
Yes.
So should there be income eligible population
is what you got up there.
or just eligible population?
I always
Does it-
fall back
you
to
don't need
what
to
the
specify?
CPA allows.
Yeah.
Is there anything else along community housing?
I do want to just take the moment to comment on that. I think there's a lot more, in the light of ADU, a lot of people thinking affordable housing is affordable housing. The word, there's two versions of the meaning of it, community, is also along with community housing. And so a smaller structure could be more affordable, but that's not what it means for the purposes of CPA, right? For our process, it's income eligible people, again, the same populations, the seniors, certain level, non-seniors, a different level, and it's governed by HUD, right, in terms of those income levels. And so, more affordable building, like a manufactured housing or ADU doesn't mean that is an affordable housing for CPA. I'm just gonna reiterate that. So as you hear about that and think about that going into next session, just know that there's a distinction in that. Yeah. And not every dollar that's spent in CPA for community housing will actually help C, which is the SHI requirement. So that, if you want to make your that housing that's created through CPA dollars, you need to make that at 80% AMI. Then it's eligible. If it's the senior housing that's moderate income, which goes up to 100% AMI, it would not count towards your SHI. Right? It goes counter to goal C. So just know that as I think the ideas are turning in terms of helping people with community housing, to know there's a distinction.
Anything else about the heat map and the goals?
Well, I have a question.
Yes.
It's truly just a question. Would it ever be a goal to make, to improve housing so that, community housing, so that, it was better for the people who lived there? For instance, if we are going to face more frequent days over 90 degrees and it's going to be humid, and it's difficult for people to deal with that without dying or getting really sick because they are frail for some reason. They're old, or they're ill, or they're very young, right? So would it be possible to for CPA to assist in improving something about the housing so that people could live there more safely.
So,
Is it only for housing that we have created?
yes, so, existing housing stock that's so the buildings that are already part of the housing authorities, right, in order to use, CPA monies could not be used to improve existing housing. But it's an opportunity for new construction that's part of the, the requirement about, make it have these amenities for life-saving, quality of life, et cetera.
I think there's a bunch of other programs where people are getting mini splits for basically nothing, which would address, if you're concerned about heat or air conditioning.
Yeah. It's
there
actually the
are a bu-
heat that kills more people.
Yeah, but there are a bunch of programs, I think state funded, not Mass Save, it's something that is providing people on the lower income spectrum with mini splits, efficient
Yeah.
heat and air conditioning systems.
Yeah. HVAC.
Yeah.
If that's the goals, we will ask Kathy as our housing expert to take a look at the housing section before our July meeting. So there is an opportunity if you think of anything else, but otherwise we can, we'll review them one more time at our next meeting and vote on it then. The same with our proposed changes to the application process, going with those deadlines that are included on, what page was that? It was a pretty great table. Excuse me. The deadlines that are on page 15. If you feel like we've thought that through and we have the right dates, we can vote on those changes to the dates now, but we will vote on the plan as a whole and any changes to the actual application itself at our next meeting. Now, we can do the dates now, or we can do that with the rest next meeting. No one has a strong opinion, we might as well wait till next time on that. So why don't we move on to the discussion items? Chris is done typing.
Thank you. Happy to kind of take these in bulk or go one by one, but these were items that had kind of crept up from conversation in prior meetings. So we just wanted to highlight them again and just activities that are ongoing. So we just wanted to highlight them again and have conversation with the board around these if it's still of interest to pursue these, if there's ideas that we should be coordinating or facilitating. So we put these discussion items for the committee's consideration this evening. Happy to take them tonight or another night. But the first is the 300th anniversary coordination. So, there's in the planning stages of that, looking for activities and kind of coordination between local entities. So as part of that process, if there's, any discussion, anything that we should be communicating on the committee's behalf to the 300th anniversary committee, we're happy to do so.
Yeah, I have one recommendation. Just the status of the cemetery project. Just keep them informed, as it would. That also the fire truck, right, status. Documents, right, the one that just got approved. So any of the projects that we have that are relative to historic preservation, I think just keeping the committee up to date on those items as they should be a note, I think, to the committee and print material. Yeah, you're on the committee, right?
Pardon me?
Are you on the committee? 300, yeah.
I think the records book, we're waiting to see when the money will be released, so we can send those over to Green Dragon Bindery and get those going. As far as I know, the fire truck is in pieces, but hopefully will be put back enough to at least put on a flatbed for the parade, but we'll see how far they get.
Oh, I can't forget also the project that was completed, which was the HVAC at 1830, and also the assessments at the brick house, schoolhouse, the other brick house.
Oh, we've got the lightning rod too, but that isn't something we can
yeah.
actually, decorate or anything or point to. I don't know.
But
It seems-
Always light it up with
people will
lightning
be
and see if it
there.
works.
Goes up on the roof.
That should help ensure that the steeple is still there for the celebration.
I saw it this morning coming up Maple Avenue. I said, ta-da, it's still there.
Yeah, so any of the historic projects, right, completed and in progress, or hopefully everything's done.
Certainly would encourage anybody viewing at home, if they have ideas or want to get involved, to contact the 300th committee, because we are looking for people and ideas and help facilitate them, so put their thinking caps on. 2027s will come faster than we think.
Yes, it will.
Takes a lot of planning.
All right. Anything else about the 300th anniversary? And exploring annual contribution coordination.
Yeah, so the committee had expressed some interest as we kind of wrap up the Affordable Housing Trust coordination. Or sorry, move into more productive steps with that, looking at and exploring additional carve-outs for other groups. So I wanted to bring that up if that's still of interest to the committee for our office to explore, if there's groups that we should be reaching out to coordinate that, or if it's no longer of significant interest, we can hold on to it for now.
Could you give us some examples aside from just,
Like, I mean, recreation, I think some communities will do that for their, kind of supplement the recreation budget by providing some of the recreational funds. A portion of that commitment, of that 10%. But like, I'm happy to be creative in how we do that.
no trails?
My personal opinion is it's a bit of a slippery slope if we start creating, the carve-outs are our budget. That 10% absolutely will go to recreation, 10% to affordable housing, and so on. I'd hate to tie up more money annually, but that's my opinion.
Well, that's a good point.
Thanks.
Yeah, it would make it feel like it's one budget. It's really two. But I see this, I'm recommending it's the other way around, which is, can we coordinate on what the priorities are? I know the monies are kind of like, well, if you didn't do it here, would you do it over here? The broad answer is no. The voters approved CPA because these projects weren't being done. And so that's why you have every playground except for Beal is on the list to get redone, right,
Right.
at some point. So I think,
Well, if we get a proposal, right?
but this is where you have an opportunity to have the conversation saying, you know what, I'm making this up. We have 3 other playgrounds that are of interest. Can we explore bundling that into one effort, one project request? That kind of thing, right? So I think we're doing it more as instead of an annual, my recommendation, instead of saying it's from a funding perspective, do it more from a efficiencies and prioritizations conversation. Because the needs are still there, it's just about doing it cheaper and faster, and with quality, right?
It makes sense to coordinate projects as much as we can. I just always hesitant to encumber monies when we don't necessarily know what's around the next bend. What else do we think? Enough of my opinion. I guess something to think about for the future. then outreach and advertising opportunities.
So this is another item that's kind of come up in discussion a couple times. I think we've discussed a potential for a spotlight article with Community Advocate and some of those kind of outreach and advertising activities that we can engage in as we're kind of wrapping up town meeting and have some additional support. I think we're better situated to kind of start tackling some of those initiatives. So just wanted to have that conversation. What do you guys envision as kind of outreach and advertising to put a little bit more of a face on the committee and the activities that we're doing?
And this is to get people involved in the thought process?
I think involved, informed, but
Yeah.
again,
Informed and involved.
looking for input, what that looks like to you, and we'll happy to execute that.
You know, frequently the coalition posts on social media projects that have been done. And if there's something that kind of pertains to our community, I've shared it, and just in hopes that maybe somebody will see it and say, oh yeah, that's a great idea. If they did it, we can do it. So maybe a little bit more presence of, or coordination of that kind of stuff might help as well. I don't know that a lot of people know that of the projects that other communities are doing, and that might, you know, kind of get their mind thinking about the possibility of doing it here in Shrewsbury as well. A lot of affordable housing, or, you know, community housing projects as well, so.
I think you have an opportunity right now to, if you agree on the dates in the next session, is to use that as your springboard to say, CPC is seeking applications, they're, you know, eligibility is this date, and really use that to drive two things. One, a social media presence, right, to say, heads up, this is what's happening. And you can also play on that saying, did you like the renovations recent at Dean Park, the basketball court? So are you taking advantage of new parking at Camp One again, or blah, 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 right? Have you seen the work going on at the cemetery? You know, that was all CPA funding. CPA eligibility is now, September 1st. You know, contact planning to get started, that kind of thing, right?
And I'll admit, I never saw any of the signs out and around. So if we still have them, we can still use them.
Yeah. So I've also seen other communities, I think even Grafton did this too, may have had an article in the Community Advocate, again, a longer format, right, but saying the same thing, which is highlight, pat yourself on the back, CPAs doing, CPA funds have contributed to these projects and notable projects in the community, the big splashy things, right? And then drive home that there's the date and who to contact for more.
I
So-
think probably a community advocate article would make sense. And it's the only outlet that will cover the story, frankly. And maybe put one of zip ties or something, but a sign on the tennis courts. Now that it's nice weather, people are out there using it or going to the playground, just to remind people this project was made possible by the people of Shrewsbury and the Community Preservation Committee. But put it back, I don't know that we ever had one at Camp One again, but maybe at the trailhead off. Well, you won't see it on 140, but if you go in the parking lot to walk the trail, you would see it.
Yeah, there should be a sign there that says something like that, somewhere there. We were thinking at some point, there probably should be a guardrail along that edge of the parking. If you look over the edge of the parking lot, it's a pretty steep drop off, and the curb's only about this high. And we didn't want to push our luck too much. But it
Not
probably
sure
could
we
use
can
it.
pay for that. We can't build sidewalks,
Yeah,
so
well, yeah.
I don't think we could do guardrails.
How about some large rocks? Right,
That would be
large
better
rocks.
than nothing, but they have to be pretty close together, so
How
the
about
small cars
you know,
should.
the large boulders that they often use, to demarcate property, you can't mow the lawn beyond this point or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
But also, you could intersperse them with some trees to give some shading to that parking lot.
it's a thought.
There you go.
Okay, we'll keep it in mind.
Keep the cars cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they're local, native trees, all the better. No, seriously.
You know, but I appreciate that, but I really like other trees as well.
Except, okay, the benefit of native trees is that they benefit native pollinators. And without the pollinators, we don't have a food chain here.
That's true. And I won't debate it with you. I understand that, yes.
All right, so next steps. Oh, yes.
Well, next steps. I just want to throw out, I saw on social media your Camp Monaghan ribbon cutting.
Oh, yeah. that
Very
was-
nice.
Oh, was it on there?
Yeah.
Yes, it
Yes, I
was.
saw that on there.
Great.
I'd also like to do a shout out that the Arrowood Park approval at town meeting. I don't know if anyone noticed that. And congratulations to Chris for the presentation. And John, I believe you spoke up at town meeting as part of that.
You guys too.
Camp Monaghan.
Oh.
Yeah, so thank you. Thank you.
Probably be a good time to say thank you to, this is our June meeting, the end of the fiscal year, and there may be some members of this body that aren't joining us again in July. So I want to say thank you for your service, for your wisdom, guidance, and yeah, you're still on speed dial.
Thank you. Thank you.
We would not have the Community Preservation Commission if it weren't for your efforts. So I know you're part of it,
Yeah,
but
a
you
few
were an
people
important part
to
of it.
really, put it there. And I have to give it all the credit to Missy Hollenbach. Right. She was the inspiration that started myself and a few others, some here and some not here anymore, in the committee. And those that also were, participated in the campaign and didn't join us on CPC. But it was her vision to bring CPA to Shrewsbury and to go for the campaign. So I don't know, for whatever reason, I just was like, hey, all right, Missy, let's do it. So let's begin. So we formed our committee and it was great, But 6 years into this now, I think it's time to have somebody else sit in this chair.
So to that point, if anyone is listening at home, the select board is accepting applications, and we'd love to have people involved. I mean, we're not the worst place to be once a month. And it's actually a lot of fun seeing what the community comes up with for projects and seeing them from concept to fruition. So we'll miss you.
And
But we
it
hope
was-
we won't find another Jason, but we're looking forward to whom else will join us.
Someone's got to read the documents, Chapter 44B,
Yes.
in and out.
So, someone who loves to read, got it.
I don't think anybody who has it in their head like you do, though, Jason. Where that's going to be
Correct.
Yeah. you're really
quite a
detailed,
loss
yeah.
for this
I
group.
mean, I think you're gonna go, I've read the 44B from end to end. What you, is it, I never get it right, is the CPC, is it, who do we pay our dues to for the state?
The coalition.
Coalition.
Coalition, yeah.
Coalition.
It's the coalition that has a lot more information
Oh, yeah.
in
They're
terms of
awesome.
do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
That's the piece you really gotta understand. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
head spinning to some extent, but I'm trying to get there.
We all have homework to do and big shoes to fill. Oh,
The-
thank
Thank
you,
you.
Jason.
The,
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah, I mean, the 44B is kind of an overview. But the coalition does a lot of interpretation of what's what.
Yeah, they're a great resource. Definitely lean on them, for sure.
Do we have funds in our budget for consultation?
Is there administrative costs?
Well, you do.
Are there any-
We have your email address, so we,
I might be on the other side asking for a project.
We'd be delighted. But warn us so we have coffee and caffeine for that meeting. So if there isn't anything else, our next meeting is July, what?
Give the right date, July
That's a doozy, 'cause
7th? Oh.
I know we have the list somewhere.
Is it 7th? Yeah.
July 7th.
So when we meet in July, we will, we-
the first Monday, oh, I'm sorry, it's the first Monday's the 7th.
then that must be it.
But that's basically 4th of July weekend. It's the Monday after 4th of July weekend.
It gave me pause, yeah, but
Oh, that's a thought, because a lot of people will be away, I bet. Maybe.
Maybe.
Hmm.
Well, we will continue to communicate about that, and if we know in advance that we won't
Back to
have
work.
quorum, we could consider
people are
moving
back to
the
work,
meeting
aren't
to
they?
another date.
Yeah,
By the
7th.
Does
7th?
anyone know now if they're not available that day?
People might, that might be the big vacation.
Or I'm issue?
No, I don't want to go away for a long time again.
So I'll take that.
Yeah, yeah.
I just got back from one trip, I can't go anywhere again.
Does anybody know those now they're not available on that day? Just so you had that in the
I'm
record.
good.
I'll be here.
I'm here, yeah.
There you go. Okay.
We'll
Looks like
stay
you'll have a
with
quorum.
July 7 as is, and I'll look forward to seeing all of you there. If there is nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So,
Second.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Concludes our June 2nd meeting. Thank you.